Welcome to the Pain to Purpose podcast, a place where we take a deep dive into spirituality concepts, tools, and practices to deepen your healing and awakening. I'm your host, Ashley Hayes. I'm a certified life coach, intuitive healer, and through my own toughest trials and tribulations, it has led me to my most beautiful testimony. So come with me on your weekly deep dive into becoming the highest, happiest, and most healed version of ourselves. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Pain to Purpose podcast. I am so excited about today's guest. Her name is Yvonne, and she is a twin flame coach. And she's joining us today to tell us all about the twin flame journey. Welcome, Yvonne. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Ashley. Thanks so much for having me. I'm very honored. This is great that we're doing this.
Can you tell people a little bit about what you do?
Yes. So I coach people and I help them sort of leave the pain behind because many times a twin flame journey includes a separation phase, so-called, where you meet your twin flame and then you break up. And that's just a very tough thing to go through because you're like, hey, we're perfect for each other. Like both recognize each other on some level. And you're like, that's what I've been looking for all my life, basically. And then because there's so much love that you can't really handle because you're not used to it, there's a lot of mirroring going on. So it's almost inevitable in most cases that you separate. And that's where people then struggle because they're like, I've had breakups before, but it wasn't ever like this. Like I still feel the person, I still feel there's love, I still feel, that we're meant to be, but he or she all of a sudden rejects me and doesn't want to have anything to do with me. So it's tough. It's not just like a normal breakup. It's really like, what is this? This is different.
Yeah. So it's just coaching through the actual process. And you coach couples as well, correct?
Yes, if the couple comes in, sometimes a couple comes in who is married, are not twin flames, but they're like one of them is having a twin flame experience and sort of comes back to their partner and goes, "Hey, I met this special person." And since, it's hard for them to even realize what they're going through, they're so confused about it. Imagine their partner or their spouse, they're just like, I don't recognize my wife or my husband. What is this? So I do that too, but mostly it's individual, like one-on-one coach or group coach, but with just the person that met their twin flame.
Okay.
Or is looking for them, right? It's both cases. Either you know about twin flames and you're like, hey, I want to find mine, or you've met them and you're highly confused about everything and in lots of pain about everything. And that's like sort of the other scenario where I come in.
Okay, so let's start with what is a twin flame connection? What makes it different than a soulmate or like a karmic connection?
Well, I want to say I always talk about my own experience, right? I have gone through training and everything, but mostly I just base whatever I'm going to say today on what I've gone through myself and what I see in all my clients. So it is that one true big love. It's that one person that you wish existed, even as a child or growing up, you're like, oh, fairy tale. Oh, it would be so nice, if there was that Prince Charming, that perfect person, that best friend. You eventually meet your twin flame, right? And you recognize them for who they are. Well, like many people even report, I've been dreaming about them since I was a child, or I felt their energy even growing up. And when you do meet the actual person in 3D, there's a recognition process happening where you're like, it's them, you know? So it is that one true love, and there isn't many or several. There's just one person, which as a society, we sort of moved away from that, right? We're like, oh, there's different types of partners along the way and long life. And this is sort of going back to the roots of like, there is that someone special for you.
So what are the characteristics that make a twin flame connection different than that we can experience, like signs to know if you met your twin flame?
Yes. So signs is, as I said, it's a sort of recognition happening of, it's them, but that also can vary, right? There's many signs that it's not always the same for everyone, but it just feels like you're one from the beginning. It can feel like that, right? I don't want to say it has to feel like that. Also, there is that true love already. You don't have to build that. You don't have to date 7, 10 times and then move in and the love is growing. It's an instant recognition of the love that was always there, because the love is the definition, like you were bound,
Yeah.
created in love. And when you meet, that sort of sparks, like there can be that love at first sight feeling. Mhm.
I've also heard that because it's like you carry the same soul frequency, but then also like the yin and yang with the twin flame. So they tend to have a vast difference than yourself, right? Like with age or like culture
Yes.
differences.
Yes, exactly. They're complementary on many levels, and they're also here. Twin flames are here to overcome societal norms and hindrances and boundaries, like sort of age, right? Like a woman who's 60 shouldn't be with a guy who's 30. Like that's a no-go, right? Or a Muslim shouldn't be with a Christian, or a Black person shouldn't be with a white, whatever it is, like all these limits we placed. So since we're here to overcome that, many times that's the situation that a twin flame couple is in, of like, oh my gosh, no, this will never work. And so the same soul frequency, yeah, that's the recognition thing, right? Where it's like, hey, that's them. Like you recognize the oneness and the sameness, sort of, but they're also complementary. So it's also that's the yin yang. I know that one has certain things or characteristics developed in them while the other one doesn't yet. And then that's the process of finding, like harmonizing these two energies.
Okay.
Mhm.
So typically, like with the twin flame union, I mean, does everyone have a twin flame? I know that like it's for a bigger purpose, right? Because when you
Right.
say the recognition, I
Mhm.
think of like, okay, is it from past lives or is it because you made a soul contract before you came here? Because you're doing a divine mission. Isn't that correct?
Time doesn't exist. There's only a one divine truth. You've been created in eternity by God from that one soul. The two people have share that same soul, or sort of the same soul incarnated in two bodies, right? And of course, there's probably many lifetimes where you cross paths or you somehow tried to be together, but you didn't manage, or one got killed or whatever, right? But since time doesn't exist and all these past like there's only the present moment, right? In truth, there's only eternity, there's
Mhm.
only now, and there's only that divine truth. So by that definition, they just are, right? Twin flames are just one being in two people, sort of.
So it's one soul divided in two bodies, essentially.
Yeah, I'm always a bit hesitant about using divided because it's not a division. It's more like a blueprint. It's more like the same soul who chooses to have two different experiences as two people. Because when you use the word divided, then you can go into the trap of thinking I'm not complete without the other.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that you shouldn't go there, because that's what many people use for so long, of going, oh, I can't feel happy without them. How could I? Because my half of my soul is missing. And that's not true. You are complete. And part of the journey is, or the essential part of the journey is realizing th- who you are, right? It's a process of self recognition, self awareness, self love, that you are complete and you can more than anything be very happy on your own when you discover yourself truly. So you're not missing something, but of course, once you do unite with them, then that's even more divine, because that's what's meant to be also. But it's not a split soul. I don't like that expression.
Okay. That makes sense. Because that would, like you said, it would make then it would make the other person, and you need that person when really you're
Exactly.
on
So
your
you
own.
always be in lack if they're not around. And it's exactly
Yeah.
where you have to overcome that feeling like something's missing, basically.
Yeah, because isn't the twin flame journey all about healing and, like you said, that self-discovery, that self-love?
Yeah. Yes. So it's about healing. And then also, like, once you're in union, but not only, even if you're in separation still, it's also being a role model, sort of, right? For in society or in for others. And you heal those around you. You heal like your family issues, right? Like ancestral stuff, or like you're really here to clean up, basically. All that has been passed down generation by generation. You're like, hey, we're done with that. We're going to take a good look at that. And that often happens while you are separated from your twin physically. But in truth, you always feel them with you. You're always one. You're sort of a team, both working on self-healing and therefore raising the vibration of society, of humanity, and also of your union, of course. So you have that divine mission that is bringing true and divine love.
Yeah, it's the highest frequency is love. So
Hmm.
that makes total sense to have two of those energies combined.
Hmm.
Uh, you said you're never separated. So I want to talk about the actual different stages of the twin flame journey,
Hmm.
because I know people always glamorize the twin flame journey,
Yes.
but with more research, I'm like, this is like, what's the positive to this again? No, let's just get it. Like, this love must be just exponential, because the journey of, it sounds like a painful one, but yet with a lot of self growth.
Yes.
So, can you tell us a little bit about the different stages of the twin flame journey and why these stages are essential for the twin flame journey?
Mhm. So no situation is alike, like another situation, like a twin flame situation, but there are these general stages happening in most unions, but not in all unions. But in general, as I said before a little bit, you lead your life. You're like, you have a job, you have maybe a husband, you have kids, whatever, but you sort of live that non-awakened life of like 3D stuff, right? Getting money in, paying bills, all that. And then you meet your twin flame, mostly unconsciously. You're not like sitting there going, oh, now I want to meet my one true love, but you, on some
Yeah.
level, you still manifest it. So you still somewhere you made a choice. Hey, I'm ready. I'm ready for growth. I'm ready for who I truly am, to discover that. So they come in and they sort of initiate the whole process, not initiate, like they trigger the whole journey, which is like, oh my gosh. And then that awakening experience starts of like, you know, from 3D, you sort of zap out of like, oh, there's so much more. What's happening? Like, imagine a very rational banker type of guy who never thought about spiritual stuff. And all of a sudden they're laying in bed and feeling their twin next to them, even though they're not there. They think they're crazy.
Yeah.
So that
It's like there's no logic with it. Yeah.
exactly. Well, with logic, we will not get anywhere. So then you start to awaken, right? And twin flames is just one way of you awakening. There's so many other ways, right? There's you having a sickness, maybe, or losing someone really close to you. Like all these painful things, many times then result in an awakening happening, right? And twin flame is one of them. That's why, as you point out correctly, it's not such a nice experience all the time, because waking up, I just used that example yesterday in coaching. Imagine you're sleeping sort of peacefully, you're having a dream, you're sleeping, you're like, hey, I'm at peace. And then someone comes and sort of shakes you and goes, hey, wake up, wake up. You have to wake up. That's not a nice thing. You're like, oh, what is this? I wish I could just stay sleeping, not waking up. So it has to be something big that shakes you. And this is what the twin flame triggers in you. All of a sudden, you look at your life you've led so far with different eyes. You're like, oh my gosh, I can see I wasn't even happy, or I wasn't happy with that job or with that spouse, I am lying to myself. I chose the job that my dad wanted for me, but I never wanted it for myself. So imagine all your life choices are sort of, you know, being questioned all of a sudden. And that's why it's a process, because then you're asked to clean up. And many times this is then initiated by the twin flame leaving again. They sort of come in, wake you up, and leave again. And you're left with your life in pieces, basically. And you're like, what is this? You know, why? Why did they even leave? And I always say, would you start cleaning up if they were just by your side and you were just, making love and holding hands? You wouldn't. Let's be honest.
Probably not.
Not.
Little
So
distracting.
exactly. So that they have to sort of leave, and also they are going to face their own things they're cleaning up, right? So you
So
both
looking at that self, the healing.
exactly healing, finding yourself, discovering that many times it's like you put them on a pedestal, it's like this big true love coming in. You're like, wow, they're so amazing. And you forget about it yourself. That's also very common, that you're projecting all the good things onto them or onto the relationship you're having. And you forget yourself and how amazing you are because you've never really seen that. And them leaving then initiates that process of you discovering that. But that can take months and years because it's not done overnight to get rid of your old 3D conditioned self and you discovering your true divine self.
Okay. So you have the initial meeting, and then there's a separation stage, and then there's like this runner chaser dynamic. And so, yeah, that seems so toxic, I feel like. But also at the same time, I get it if there's this soul tie and there's a bond,
Mhm.
and that healing work does take time. Not everyone has a twin, right?
I do believe that everyone has a twin flame. Yet, is everyone meant or is everyone going to meet their twin flame in this lifetime? I don't think so.
Yeah, that
Because
makes
it
sense.
is sort of a higher stage of like, it's all old souls, if you want so, that are currently in a twin flame situation because they've lived many lifetimes, right? And then now, I guess, they sort of choose as a lesson or the discovery of this lifetime is like, oh, I want to know unconditional love because
Mhm.
that's what it's all about. Because what we know currently is conditional love, right? Of like, hey, if you give me kids, I give you, I stop
Yes.
working. If you give me the house, I do. So it's a transactional relation.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And the unconditional love, we don't really know. So I think it's old souls, like as one of the last lessons of this earth is like, now I want to learn unconditional love. And that's the toxic part you maybe talk about, where it's like you feel the love, but you're being rejected or the other person doesn't want to be with you because they can only be with you when you accept yourself. You have to accept yourself first and love yourself first in order for them to love you because they are you in a way, right?
How does this affect the journey if, say, someone does the work and the other person doesn't? I mean, not everyone's destined to be together, I would assume, even if they are twin flames, right?
Well, it is a choice you make that to do the work and you sort of work as a team because there is that eternal connection. You don't really operate separated from each other. It just looks different. So there's that runner chaser phase, as you pointed out, where the one that's usually, that one that breaks up the relationship then runs away, either because the connection is too strong for him or her. It's tense, they're freaking out, they want to go back to their wife, whatever it is. And then the chaser, because doesn't really value themselves and projected all the good things onto the runner, basically runs behind them, like chases them. But in truth, they're both running from themselves. Like the one is running from the connection, the other one is running from themselves because they're like, oh, the good part of who I am just left. Right. So that that's what probably sounds toxic to you. But when you look at
Like
it
the anxious, avoidant attachment style, it sounds like.
well, yeah, but only that, the love is real between them and you feel that. Once you met them, you know that there's love. Whereas in that attachment style stuff, right? It's usually it's you attach to something that's not good for you. Well, in this case, the person loves you. They just have to leave in order for you to realize that you don't love yourself.
Yeah.
It's sort of a divine purpose why they leave. And it's a divine purpose why you chase in order to then realize that there's no chasing to be done. You need to find yourself. Like you have everything right here.
This is so interesting to me, okay? So I want to talk about the telepathy with twin flames. I found this like so interesting and I want to hear more about it because I'm a very intuitive person. Um, but I feel like most people could do this, but then I'm also very intuitive. So is this mostly for twin flames or just I read that once you are in contact or you're in physical touch with your twin flame, that your psychic abilities awaken more. Is this
Mhm.
true? Okay.
But that's what I hear from clients. I'm also many times still very much in my head, right? I'm very analytical. I'm very rational also. But it's true that along the journey, I did realize certain sort of gifts about myself too, right? That I didn't know before. And like I felt to me, it was like that claircognizance that where I just knew stuff. I knew numbers.
Yeah.
I was watching movies. I knew what they're gonna say next, like all this. So I totally believe in that, that we all communicate through thoughts anyways, all the
Mhm.
time. We're just not so much aware. But in 5D, let's say, we don't need words anymore because we communicate from heart to heart, right? So, and yes, the telepathy between twin flames, like they feel each other, they feel each other's feelings. The hard part, also for me personally, is was to know what is mine and what is his, right? Where
Yeah.
the line? Where am I? Is it my sadness? Is it his? And there's like little tools you can apply to find that out. But that's a path of discovery too, like how does it really work?
Can you tell us about those tools? Like, is it just being aware of your energy and disconnecting? Because I've
Yes.
done cord cutting before, but I've heard like with the twin flame union that you can never, the cord, you're stuck.
It's not stuck. It's just like that eternal divine bonds that,
Okay. Yeah.
there's that oneness that there's nothing to cut in a oneness, right? It's just a oneness. It's just a unity. So you can't cut a unity. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a unity. But what I personally started doing, which worked really well, was like if I had like, let's say, huge sadness come up all of a sudden, right? So this can happen because it's can be upheaval, you can be going through something. So it's hard to know, is this mine or not? So when you clearly state like, I only choose to feel what's mine and I give back to whoever, either my twin or whoever else, what isn't, like in my
Hmm.
experience, it stops right away when it's not yours.
Yeah. Just
You
send that
go,
energy back with love and light. And
yeah, you're just like, from being in tears, you're just like, huh, I'm good, you know?
yeah, I've definitely had that experience before. I feel
Okay.
like, but I do feel like I'm really empathic. So I have to constantly clear my energy and disconnect from people energetically because I just feel like a little, just I
Yes.
walk around like a little magnet, just attracting
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
just
I
the
do.
energy.
Yes. I know what you mean.
Yeah. So that kind of leads me into synchronicities. There's all this stuff about synchronicities and twin flames. Like you start seeing signs and synchronicities. I remember speaking with a spiritual guru that I did a seminar at a spiritual school, and he was talking about his twin flame. He didn't label it as that either,
Yep.
but he said he was walking across the street. He was in another country, and he almost got hit by a car. And not even within 30 seconds, she called him like, "Are you okay?" Like she was almost there.
Yep.
And that's so crazy. And then when I heard more about like twin flames and stuff, I was like, I bet that's what he was speaking about, but he
Yes.
just didn't label it in that way. So interesting.
Yes.
So you're just one energy. Say one person does the healing work and the other one doesn't. Is this a catalyst for theirs?
That yeah, you sort of heal as a team, but you don't always go through the same experiences at the same time, right? So one could be actively working on themselves to discover who they are, doing the spiritual work, everything. And the other one, let's say, is married to someone they're maybe not as highly in love with because they ran from the connection, or they're going on a world trip around the world and just like running in that way. Whatever they experience is their part of the healing. If they are with the wrong person, wrong, I don't want to label it, right? But it's not that both sit down and do active spiritual work necessarily. It just looks very different. It can look as if one part is not doing anything, but living life is already healing, right? And usually there are different rules. Like usually that chaser part, does the active work because they realize, okay, we're twin flames. Okay, I have to focus on myself. I have to clean up my life. So that looks like they're doing the work and the other ones don't because they're less aware many times. The ones that run away are less aware what's happening. They're just freaking out on some level, but they're not sitting down and watching YouTube videos probably. But then it can change, right? When the chaser fully finds themselves and starts to realize how amazing they are and start living life to the fullest and really find joy again and happiness, then the other one feels that withdrawal of energy of like the chaser thinking of them 24/7, and then starts missing something, and starts questioning what's happening. Why do I keep thinking about them? Why can I not cut this? Why can't I run away? Why can't I be happy without thinking of them? Like, it looks different. It's not the same, but it's not that one sacrifices themselves for the union and the other is just living the good life. It might look like that, and that's what triggers many people because they're like, oh, they're over there having kind of a quiet, amazing time, and I'm over here crying, watching videos and doing inner work. Like, why is that? But it's a phase, and then it shifts, and the other one is starting to feel like they need to take a deep look at their life too.
It makes sense because we're all growing at our different rates, and
Exactly.
life is just an experience. So
Mhm.
you're always learning. How can you tell the difference between like a false twin flame connection and a true twin flame connection?
To me, I always say the main difference, or the only difference really, is in the twin flame connection, there's love. True divine love, right? And in the other one, there isn't. But everything else can look very similar. You can miss them, you can constantly think of them, you can dream of them, of your false twin, let's say, right? That's where that toxicity maybe comes in, or that avoidant attachment style, where you're like, oh, I think one day I'll be with that person because no one ever loved me like them. But it's not love, not really. And when you awaken from that experience, you realize that many times through meeting your true twin flame, where you feel that mutual love, where you go, oh, that's what love feels like. Like, that's basically a sentence that almost every client says is, they taught me what love is. Your true twin flame teaches you and shows you what love is. While before meeting your twin, you think you know what love is. And it might be a toxic relationship, or you can't compare, right? All you know is all you know. You don't have the awareness of knowing what is true love. But once you meet, you then recognize, and looking back, you realize what you went through. Oh, that was a false twin flame experience because I thought they were the love of my life. And now I see they didn't give a damn, basically.
Yeah, it sounds like people need to do that self-love work because
Yes.
and it sounds like you do work with a lot of people that are struggling. I'm sure this is like the main thing you push them towards, because once you just pour that into yourself, then it's like, then you don't feel that way. I think when you have more self-love, you're more fulfilled. You complete yourself. You don't need that person. So is your main focus as a coach for the people that are individuals struggling and they're, sad all the time, like you said, missing them and stuff, to really just push them into the self-love so that they can get out of that aspect of themselves? Because
Yes.
isn't it, it's just a self-love issue, a self-worth issue. Because
It is. Yes, they reflect the lack of self-love that you have towards yourself. And once you find your self-love, they reflect you having found the self-love, and they can love you too. Like they always love you, but then they love you physically, like in the relationship, right? Then it can happen. And then it can be peaceful and harmonious, because when it's not healed, even if twin flames are sort of in union, it can be really difficult to live, because you're like, the triggering is just overwhelming. It's a letting go, and I wouldn't use the word push, but I gently guide them into them loving themselves, right? I mean, it's not that I throw them in there and they're like, oh, now you have to love yourself. That's where you come to. You're like, oh, I feel the love within me. Like you discover your own love, because before you were lacking love. That's why you latched onto the other person. You're like, hey, you need to be here in order to love me, because I don't love myself. Right. So what
Yeah.
you're saying is true. I guide them to discover how amazing they are, and that they can let go of that attachment of needing someone outside of them to love them. Because that's what the issue is. That's why the other person left in the first place, because you weren't loving yourself. And since they love you so much, your twin flame loves you so much, that they take it upon themselves to leave you, just for you to discover then your own self-love. Because that's their highest purpose, is for them to push you, as you say, or gently guide you into your own self-love, so they don't have to give it to you, because they see how amazing you are. They just suffer from seeing that you don't see it.
Do they have the same wounds? Because it seems like a lot of the twin flames, abandonment wound and rejection wounds,
Yes,
do they have the same wounds that they need to work on?
I do believe. I do believe that. That's what I experience. That's what I see in people. It looks different again. It's always, there's a core level where I do believe you have the same wounds. Many times it's self-worth, it's self-love, fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, fear of being alone, like all these things, but it shows differently. So the one who is afraid of, being with themselves might be, one part might be from one relationship to the next. And the other
Yeah.
one might be, addicted to sports or whatever. So both of them can be with themselves only, because they don't enjoy their own company. So it looks different, right? But both have the same core wound. And that's why you don't see it at first, or at the first glance you take, because it looks different. But I do believe, yes, they share, because they're one, right?
But that's like where that triggering comes in. And that's where it's like, okay, twin flames, it's like known to be like highly triggered or like volatile.
Yes,
Although there's so much love, there's like that deeper aspect to dive in and get down to like who we are to the core.
exactly.
Okay. Is twin flame sex different from any other? Like, is this a different experience? I feel like I've seen a little bit about this. I've not experienced this, but I'm just curious.
Yeah, to me, it's a reflection of the relationship, sex, right? In general. So when your union isn't healed, when there's issues, when you are not connected with yourself, when you are afraid of men, let's say as a woman, or as a man, you think, oh, I can't trust women, whatever it is, it will show in that department too, right? You can't
Okay, like
have
the
that
connection with intimacy.
Exactly. If you are afraid of intimacy, let's say, right, you avoid it in every way, you're not going to be able to experience that. But a healed twin flame relationship, like the sex within the healed
Fireworks.
relationship, is because then you realize that sex is not just a physical act of, like basically a gym in the bedroom, but it really is a spiritual experience of connecting with God and the divine through both of your bodies uniting. Like it's almost you uniting as two bodies and two people. You unite with the divine, so it becomes that divine experience it's meant to be at the core.
I'm going to manifest that experience. Like, sounds enticing. Oh, okay. Okay. So, what is the significance around twin flames in the eyes? Like, is it just because you see your soul
Mhm.
in that other person?
I mean, that's what we say in general, right? The eyes are the window to the soul. Like you
Mhm.
have that with other people too. But there is that recognition happening through the eyes, and also that whole seeing through each other, almost like you see into the other soul. You just recognize them on that deep level, and you see
Yeah.
through them. Sometimes it's a touch, like they feel your hand for the first time, or you shake hands and it's like a lightning striking you because it's like something's happening. But through the eyes, you see, yes, you see deeper, you recognize each other really. And it's also a fact that you can't lie to each other, you can't hide. That's why many twin flames then run, because it's so intense to be so seen, that you can't put on the mask. You can't pretend. You can't come like, let's say, as a man, not only, but oh, I'm that cool guy with the good job and the big car and whatever. It just doesn't work because your woman is gonna see through you and goes, hey, you have insecurities in there, and I'm gonna mirror them to you. Not in a mean way and not in a conscious way, but it's just happening. So that can be
Yeah.
almost too much, to have these eyes on you that see through you, that see through everything and
Yeah.
as a facade. So and of course, when the eyes meet, that sees through each other, like the one sees through the other one and this one sees, of course, that's a very intense
Yeah.
thing. You see through to the bottom. Yes. When people start questioning the love, because that's part of the process that you're like, hey, am I crazy? Because they just left me, but I know they love me. So even that you see in the eyes, when you look into your twin, you see the love there. They can try to look at you in a, I'm done way, but it's just not working.
I was just gonna say, because it's such a difficult union, it
Yeah.
sounds like to come into play, and you even said, like, a lot of times they're with other people, so that sounds real messy to me.
I know.
But so it sounds like this has to be the most
Exactly.
amazing experience just based off of your experience. If you don't mind me asking, what is it? Is it just that you feel that it's more of a divine love than you've experienced with other people? What is worth this journey for the people that make it on the other side of it?
Right. It's just like once you've experienced, and that's how the journey works, right? You sort of get given by the universe or by God, you get that glimpse of, many times it's like a honeymoon phase, where you have like 3 months or 3 years together before one starts leaving because the mirroring is happening. It's not healed yet, but you have that experience of being with them. And that's just heaven on earth. It's just like paradise because it's someone who is you. You have the same values, you have the same view on life, you have the same goals in life. You don't have to discuss the things that you usually have to discuss with people who aren't your twin flame,
Mm.
like how much money you want to spend, where are you going to go on vacation, how do you want to raise your kids, like all these things. You're just like, wow, basically the same person, you're like,
Mm.
wow, basically. And all of a sudden that so aligns. So it's easy, it's beautiful, it's really divine. So it's sort of hard to overcome that because any other person you're going to meet, it's not going to be that ever, right? It's just not, it doesn't even come close because everyone else is just going to be a stranger, sort of. And of course, there's this different types of love, and you can be with someone else because sometimes you need it for the healing and then come into union. But as you say, it's the unconditional love. And how do you test an unconditional love? By sort of bringing in maybe other people or children or
Mm.
whatever happens, moving to other countries, like the worst possible scenarios, in order for you to realize my love just doesn't go away. It's not conditioned by what they do and what they don't do, or if they choose me or if they don't choose me. It's just there.
Mm.
But once it's healed, it becomes that, as we say, heaven on earth, in the sense of this is so beautiful. I couldn't imagine anything better than this.
Oh, I love that.
Oh,
Perfect for Valentine's Day.
true, true. Good point. And
Well, I want to thank you so much, Yvonne, for being on the podcast today and sharing your knowledge
thank you
that
so
you've
much
shared
for
with me.
inviting me, Ashley.
And if anyone is in a twin flame union or separation, or they want coaching so that they can move through this with ease and be able to ascend and be their higher self, make sure to check out Yvonne's information in the description box below. And until next time, I think the lesson here is, again, self-love. So stay blessed.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I hope this message resonated with you and the parts of you that may need healing. If you feel called to share or subscribe, I appreciate all the support. My true intention is to spread more awareness on this topic to really help inspire change in the world. So if you like what you hear, please join me every Friday for your weekly deep dive into becoming the highest version of ourselves. And for more inspiration and wisdom, you can also find me on Instagram at AshleyHayes44. Until next time, God bless.